Okay, guys. So last week we spoke about, obviously, we said we're going to be doing a three-part series. So we've done part 1 and 2. In the first week, we spoke about the structure of the US criminal justice system, and we kind of went into that. And then the second week, which is last week, we spoke about abolition and reform of the police, or the police like department within America. So if you haven't seen any of those, it's on our Black Lives Matter YouTube channel, and Scylla like regularly updates our Instagram page. So thank you to Scylla and Amar, actually, both of you do.
Come on,
Big up
you know
to
the
both of you.
vibes.
So this week, people, we said we're going to talk about the court system, and in both we're going to compare it to England as well, the one in America, so that we can kind of just get like a perspective on it. Am I stuttering? Yeah, we can get a perspective from it. So basically, within the court system in America, you've got like the different aspects. So you've got like the federal laws, or you've got state laws. It kind of varies a little bit, but depending on where you are, normally state law takes precedent over federal law, but it just depends on where you are, to be honest. If a case is very, very, very serious, you'll find that it will go to the Supreme Court, but most times the courts will just go to like a magistrate court or something like that. So in England, we'll start off with England because America is the bigger kind of discussion here. So in England, you've got the tribunals, which is basically when you have like some form of dispute or something's happened, but you just go to like a local panel, and there's people there, and they normally like direct you into different pathways and stuff, and it's more paperwork for anything. There's no jury, there's no judge. It's just a panel, kind of like judging over what you're bringing to them, so the issue. So it's normally like a money problem or something like that. So that's what you have with a tribunal. So tribunals are used in England. You don't get them in America. Then you've also got normal courts. So you've got the different ones. So you've got the Crown's Court, you've got the Magistrates Court. In England, you've also got Supreme Court too. And then you've also got like county courts and stuff like that, which are a little bit dead. So basically, the court process in England is very, very basic. It is basically, if you're charged, normally you get taken in for some form of questioning, and they hold you within custody. Then after they've held you in custody, they'll give you a trial date. No, in England, they don't tend to talk to you without a lawyer, because I don't know, I feel like the system here, it is corrupt still, but it's less corrupt than in America. So normally you do have a lawyer present. So they'll talk to you about that. After you've done that, you go through the process of finding out trial dates. They'll talk to you about, sometimes they'll talk to you about plea bargaining. And then other times they'll also talk to you about like whether you're guilty or not, or whether you want to like not appeal, sorry, because that's after, whether you want to like state whether you're not guilty as well. So then they go to that, then you go to court. Once you've gone to court, obviously we all know what happens in court. You depending on how big the case is, you have a jury which is randomly selected, and it's compulsory to be a jury. You can't reject jury duty. So you'll have that, and then afterwards you have your sentencing, then you have your appeal. So that's the standard procedure. And then we'll kind of compare it to America's one, which is a little bit different, and it seems to be a little bit more intense, I'm not going to lie. So obviously you have your crime. So let's just use an example here. You have the investigation. So someone's been committed a murder. In the case of Black Lives Matter, we've got a black guy. He's been committed of murder that he hasn't committed. He hasn't done anything. He's just been caught in the scene at the time it's happening, and they just found the first black guy to pin it on. So you have the investigation where they'll look at the scene, they'll assess it, and then they'll have to go to charging someone. But in order to charge in America, there has to be some form of murder weapon. So if someone's been shot, there has to be evidence that there's a gun, because without a murder weapon, no one can be charged, no fingerprints can be taken, anything like that. So the court system in America, you could say, like it looks for a little bit more detail, but then that's where it leads to the corruption there, because after you have the charging, you go to the initial hearing, or in America they call it the arraignment, but I like to call it the initial hearing because it's the first hearing which you go to. So you have that, which is where the sentence is first said to the people. So if you've committed murder, the judge will say to you, you're going to be getting 7 years for this, or you're going to be getting 12 years for this crime, and you'll find out what your like charges and stuff are initially. Then this is where it gets a little bit controversial, I'm not going to lie. So you have discovery, and you might see it on all the TV programs that you watch and stuff, like crime dramas and stuff. But discovery is basically where you have all the information from the crime scene. So you have any murder weapons if you find them, any maybe things that lead to DNA, anything that the prosecution or the defense want to use in court. So they both need to put whatever they're going to use in discovery. Otherwise, it's inadmissible. It can't be used. If their stuff is not there, then obviously, as I said, it can't be used, but everything needs to be in discovery. Everything's going to be in court, needs to be in discovery. But this is where it gets a little bit controversial, because what happens in American systems, especially when it comes to black people, as I said, we're doing an example of black guys being murdered. In this situation, what would normally happen, as he didn't commit the murder, obviously, for one, there's going to be no fingerprints on the gun, so there's no DNA there. What will happen is, more than likely the evidence will be tampered with. And America, they do this a lot because the police force is very, very corrupt. The judges and stuff, they tend to have links and stuff. It's very corrupt. So they tend to tamper with the evidence to make it linked to the person they found. Because if A plus B doesn't equal C, then they can't charge somebody. So they'll make it work. They'll make it make sense by tampering with the evidence. Yeah, so that's what happens with that. I mean, Silla, Amal, the evidence tampering is a very, 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 very prevalent thing in America. And a lot of the cases where black people have been convicted, such as the Khalif Browder case and stuff, either it's been that they've been tampered with or they've not been given a trial, full stop. So like no one can give a second opinion. But like when it comes to like the discovery and stuff and like having all the evidence there, but like the police being able to control what's been there because they have the full power. What do you think about that? Do you think there should be like a higher power saying what should be there that's like mutually exclusive, so there's no bias? What do you guys think about that? Like, because it leads to controversy and it leads to corruption.
Yeah, definitely. I do believe that there needs to be some sort of a filter, like you said, Jonathan, a higher power whereby we can eliminate all bias, like as best as possible. Because with America, what I feel like happens is, and it's even more unfortunate in the cases where, let's say, conveniently on the night of like a crime, let's say at the crime zone, if there's something that the police can later then use and say, oh, but this case is true, so and so is guilty because X, Y, and Z was there. So for example, to elaborate on that and to give you an example, like you said, Johnny, the Khalif Browder case. So on the night of May 15th, 2010, obviously he was coming back from a block party and he had a backpack on. And unfortunately for his case, there was like, I believe, 2 boys who were like carrying backpacks as well. And then that's how he got arrested, because he got charged for apparently stealing someone's backpack. So I think in the case like his, where there's just unfortunately some convenient little lie, or like people who how do I say this, like, see the backpacks, that's like the common theme, like we can just easily say, oh, you had a backpack, you're black, you look dodged, do you know what I'm saying? Exactly. So in cases like that, where obviously it doesn't happen all the time, but obviously in the cases where it does happen, I feel like there has to be some sort of higher power, or like DA, like a district attorney, where like someone can say, no, before we convict this person, even though they're like innocent, it has to pass through them first.
Because the thing that makes it so corrupt is, as you said, Amal, like at the crime scene, the police can keep anything they want and put it within they have lockers within the police station where they keep all the stuff from the crime scene. If they find a cap maybe worn by the person, so say for instance, when obviously you know how violent arrests are in America, if someone's convicted of maybe, like say this black person's convicted of something, they'll first do frisk and search. So they'll literally grab him, push him up against the wall, be very aggressive. So he could drop something, for example. Say, for instance, he's wearing a cap, he drops it. He can't pick it up. They leave the cap there. They can take that into the police station. If there's a hair in there, that's DNA. See how it all adds up. And then there's if they plant that on the gun or whatever was used or whatever situation is, they plant on the evidence, that it makes sense that he committed it because there's evidence there. That's tampering. And that's how like a lot of things can happen where like black people could be like convicted of stuff, or people can go to prison and stuff. And that's why I think discovery can be very controversial. But anyway, after discovery, it tends to go to the stage of a plea bargaining. So the the person who's been convicted they'll been told a sentence. As I said, they may have 7 years, you know, maybe 5 years or something, and then the district attorney will or maybe someone lower down in the organization, they'll come to them and talk to them and say, okay, look, so you're looking at a 7 year sentence. However, if you like you say you're guilty, you admit to being guilty, we'll offer you 2 years with the possibility of parole. So once the 2 years have been done, then there'll be parole afterwards. And once, obviously with parole, it's basically where they go to the board and the board decide whether they've changed their actions and they're willing, that they're able to be on the street and not be a danger to society. So that will happen. But in most cases, especially with black people as well, black people who've been convicted, what happens is they'll be given a plea bargain, which is like completely and utterly out of this world. So if they've been convicted of 10 years, then they'll be given a plea bargain, which is 2 years. So they'll be given 2 years in parole. And if you think about it, if you committed a crime, if you've been convicted of a crime, sorry, that you haven't committed, and someone said to you, you're looking at 10 years, but I'll offer you 2. Like, obviously, you're going to threaten that situation. You're more than likely going to want to accept it, because going to prison is a scary thought to a lot of black people who are innocent, and to anyone really. So they're pressured to accept it. So in that situation, they'll be offered that. But then the twist with that situation is when it gets to the 2 years they've been in prison, they've done their 2 years in prison, and it comes to parole, they're normally rejected parole. And that's how it comes that most people are given longer sentences. So the same thing, as Amal was saying, the same thing happened with Khalif Browder. He went to prison for 3 years for a crime he didn't commit. And he was offered parole a number of times. But the thing with parole is you have to admit that you're guilty. So in order to be released on parole, you have to admit to you're guilty. Even if you haven't done the crime, you have to admit to being guilty. So that's kind of the twist in the story when it comes to that aspect, like with the plea bargaining. And I think it's once again, it's very corrupt. It's another reason why the court system in America is very corrupt. I mean, still, I don't know if you have anything to say about what you think about plea bargainings and how it, like any case or anything, what you think about it.
Yeah, so like this is why the US like system is so backwards, because it's almost like you're perceived guilty until proven innocent, rather than being solely innocent until proven guilty, if that makes sense. And it's crazy that they, as you said, they will tamper with evidence. They'll do everything in their power to convict a black person, because again, going back to what we talked about a few weeks ago with mass incarceration, they want more black people in prison. They want to keep black people out of society. Again, historically, they don't want black people to be equal. They don't want them to have the same things. And it's crazy. Like, Amal, what do you think?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's actually like so disturbing to think that we even have to have conversations about not incriminating innocent black people. Like, it's crazy. Like you said, when we were talking about mass incarceration, I think the amount of tabs that are just kept on black African Americans alone, like, it's just, the number is astronomical. Do you know what I'm saying? But
yeah,
I wanted to ask you guys as well, like, so what Jonathan was saying about how do you think we should have a higher power as to where something is passed so we can actually prove people are innocent, and obviously not misuse evidence. So for example, a strand of hair from like a hat or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But do you guys not also think that there should be, like, so for example, when someone goes to their parole hearing or something, and obviously they want to go back home and stuff, they're innocent and everything, but in order for them to do that, obviously they have to admit to it. So do you think, obviously it goes without saying that's not fair, but I feel like that combined with the fact that they also unfortunately have the power to discredit them. So like if they really want, which they can, because you know the white supremacist officers can easily just take, for example, I'm trying to think, like let's say for example like a semen sample, and they can just easily just say link 2 and 2 together when it doesn't even make sense, and be like, yeah, this guy is like guilty for this rape of this person, or do you know what I'm saying? So I feel like what can be done about the actual usage of like non-relevant DNA samples? Like, who's to say what should be used, what can be used? And like there should be like a middleman to actually say, hold up, you know, wait a minute, something right. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, like I feel like the reason why it's like that is because of the way the current system is designed, and there's no room for like having that middleman, because the system is designed to disadvantage certain people, i.e. Black people. And this is why I was so for abolition. So like, Jonathan, do you wanna, what do you think about like,
I mean,
massive?
I've heard like with this entire thing. I mean, the only possible thing that can be done in this situation is probably introducing some form of legislation. But as you've seen in America, legislation doesn't work because like the laws and stuff that in America at the moment they don't benefit Black people. They disadvantage them. You know what I'm saying? So like, introducing more legislation probably wouldn't work. I mean, the controversial thing with the plea bargaining is most times and in most situations, so if you look at the Central Part 5, I mean, they weren't even offered a plea bargain, but in their first kind of discussion about this, what their crime was, they were put in a room with no lawyer by themselves, bearing in mind they're minors, they were coerced, they were beaten, like that kind of stuff. It has a mental effect, and once you have this mental effect, you're convinced into like accepting everything and anything. So like
believing that you're guilty of a crime that you didn't even commit.
As you said, it adds to the mass incarceration because you end up accepting it because you feel like you have no choice.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
It's
that
crazy.
let alone is very like damaging mentally, physically.
100.
So not only do they do that, we have to remember they like the way in which, so already it's not enough to be sentenced to something that you're not even like something, okay, like someone who's innocent, they already love doing that to Black people. We take them in, keep tabs on them, you're guilty for X, Y, and Z when you're really not. But on top of that, then they have to go that extra mile by doing things like solitary confinement. So again, back with the Khalif Browder case, for was it 2 years of the 3 years he had to serve, he was just kept in solitary confinement at 16 years old. And on top of that, like Jonathan said a couple of weeks back, Rikers Island, which is New York's most notorious, you know, it's the worst
prison
prison
shut down
ever.
now as well.
That's what I'm saying. So the extent to which they do that to these people, like that needs to be stopped as well. And I feel like perhaps maybe we should look at the age that they're doing this to. Like, I'm not trying to say it's good to imprison innocent people, but if you're going to, which obviously they are because they're just flipping racist, like come on. You should at least look at the age as well. I feel like there's been so many cases in history where they're incriminating young Black boys, which then doesn't help them in the future because they're limited. Once released, they're very limited in like what they can do, like a job wise, and basically they've just ruined their whole life for.
That's it. Like you need to also like think, as you said, about the implications of doing like falsely accusing them and then convicting them, because as you said, they won't be able to get jobs because they always have that record. They won't be able to get jobs, get into the top schools, and then their whole life spirals out of control. And then this is passed on to the generation, and then their kids, and it's a never-ending cycle. It's crazy.
It's corrupt, and that's the plea bargaining. That's not even just the plea bargaining. So like obviously I've said the other steps with discovery, the arraignment, I've said the initial hearing, and like I think it's just backward because within the American system, like the proceedings of a court or a criminal like case, there's not just one hearing, there's two hearings. But there's an initial hearing, then after they've done this all this coercion and this like bullying into the people and trying to give them a plea bargain, after they've done this, they give another hearing. There's another hearing before they decide whether they want to go to trial. So what they do is they give you the first hearing, say, okay, so this is what you've got right now. They bully them into getting something else, which will essentially say that they're guilty because they have to admit being guilty. And then after that, after they've been bullied, there'll be another hearing, another preliminary hearing, in which they say, okay, so you've been given a plea bargain by the DA. You can either accept that or you can say not guilty and go to court and get this sentence instead. So there's no option. There's literally no option. So like, it's just, I think like when it gets to that stage, it just becomes completely, utterly like unfair. Like there's no way out because America, I mean, if you look at like after that, obviously there's trials, so there's pre-trial motions and stuff, which is, I mean, that doesn't really mean anything in Black cases, to be honest. But if you look at the Khalif Browder, I mean, I know we keep going back to this, but he wasn't even admitted to trial until well into his prison sentence. Like every single person has the right to a fair and speedy trial. However, he didn't get that, and a lot of people in America don't get trials. So a jury isn't there to say whether they're guilty or not. And I'm not going to lie, 80% of the time, probably, they're not going to be, like, the jury are going to find them not guilty. But that doesn't help the prosecution or anyone like that. So why are they gonna try and speed up the procedure and get them their trial when all it's going to do is just go against what they want, which is mass incarceration? But, I mean,
which
what do you
is so
guys think?
ironic, exactly.
Wow.
Why, what's the point of implementing that in the first place? Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, the legal system the American legal system is so intricate, almost for no reason. Like,
exactly.
so
So much detail.
complicated.
Oh no, but they know when to be
So much.
intricate depending on your color, though. Like, do you think they've done this historically in the past to white people who, bearing in mind, are actually guilty for the crimes that they've been taken?
It doesn't happen.
The same crimes as black people, you know.
Amal, I mean, Stella, you've probably seen it too. I'm not sure if you've seen the Khalif Browder, but Amal, you previously talking about it. In the Khalif Browder case, there was a scene where Khalif Browder was getting beaten up by some other prisoners and inmates, and they stated that white guys didn't get brought into Rikers Island. If white guys got brought into Rikers Island, it was for a week and they were transferred. Like,
exactly.
Doesn't that just
Wow.
like, why is the entire population black?
That's
black
what I'm
people,
saying.
yeah.
In most cases, most of the white people who only spend a couple of days at Rikers Island, their cases then get taken like for further appeal, even up until the. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Jonathan, because I'm not too sure with like the laws in America, but I believe it's the Supreme Court is the final one.
The
top.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So the question really is like, why is it that we see so many like the imbalance, first of all, between white people, black people, but why is it that we see so many differences in the way that they're treated though as well?
It's just backwards. It's very backwards.
We're just humanized, man. They just treat us like.
America's so built on like their amendments, and to be an American citizen. Wow, like I am American. This is the American dream. All my 13th Amendment, all that, like blah blah blah. But then, how comes they're not being like treated to within the criminal justice system? So like when Jonathan at the start of this podcast was saying about how you can be searched, correct me if I'm wrong again, but I swear that's one of the amendments that you have the right to like not just be randomly touched up by a police officer when you're walking down the street. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that aren't catered to, and then on top of that, people who are 16 and under are not even allowed. They should be allowed a parent or guardian at their hearing, but for people like Corey Wise, for example, as we know, Khalif Browder, they weren't even allowed like their mum or dad within the room when they were getting coerced either. So why are all these rules breached? I know it is sad, but why are all these rules breached? But it's not the case again when you have like a white man in the courtroom. Do you know what I'm saying?
Because I feel like for a lot of like the white people, they make excuses for them, saying like, "Oh, this is gonna ruin his future," or it was just like a lapse in his judgment. He's not like this. He has mental health disorders. There's always something for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, from what we've seen, like clearly you can see. I mean, we all know that in England things that do happen within the court procedures and stuff, which are also corrupt. But I mean, in America, they just don't hide it. Like, if you can see, like,
exactly.
In America, it's just so obvious and clear.
It's so blatant. It's blatant.
Like the court procedure here it works to an extent, but in America, it's completely utterly broken. Like, it's fixed, if you can say it's fixed.
Like comparatively, one can argue the UK system is quote unquote better in that sense, because it does. But it's still, obviously, there's still, as you said, there's still some flaws, but it's not as corrupt and broken as the US system.
Yeah, but that's not to say that the UK is innocent as well.
Oh yeah, of course, the UK is not innocent. The UK is not innocent at all.
But I feel like obviously we've done the 3 parts now, so I feel like we should just summarize. Like, obviously last week the first week we were talking about obviously the structure. So in that we spoke about obviously the 13th Amendment, which basically says that unless you're a free person, if you're in prison, you're not a free person. So after that, you haven't got any rights and stuff. So that kind of links into what we're saying this week about the incarceration, the mass incarceration, and how the prison system basically just locks people up for no reason. So like it's aimed to lock people up. So it links in. And then still, with the abolition and stuff, like that links to discovery, doesn't it? Like if police have been abolished, how are they gonna tamper with discovery. I mean, what do you guys like? I
Mm.
don't know. How do you guys think it will link? So what do you think? Like, I don't know, because
Amal, do you wanna?
Wait, how they link, like, holistically, we're looking at it
yeah.
in
So like obviously you've spoken about like the conviction
Like
age and stuff
abolition,
like
yeah.
that, abolition. Like, how do you think like the court process? How is it all linked together? Like, how does it add and show as a whole America is just completely utterly corrupt?
I feel like because there's like a system to it, you know what I'm saying? You don't
Yeah.
get from point A to B just like in a straight line, do you know what I'm saying? I feel like there has to be certain steps to get to the end result of, like, you've got someone innocent behind bars for something that they're not actually guilty of. And I feel like
Yeah.
the reason why they're also intrinsically linked like that is because without having the amendments broken, then you can't really say it's ironic and America is wrong for implementing amendments that they don't equally are not equally abided by every race. And then on top of that, looking at police reform versus abolition, that links as well, because it actually starts off by telling us whether, okay, like, when someone is incarcerated, is that because the police were just being brutal and unfair? If so, then that means, should we like leave them like altogether? Should we just look at revising the system? So I feel like there's so many, like, if you were to draw out a spider diagram, there's so many ways you can draw in links from each
Exactly.
and everything into it. But just quickly as well, before I finish, I think a really good analogy Scylla had. She spoke to me about this like a week ago, and she didn't get to mention this in last week's episode. So I feel like, Scylla, let the people know what you had to say.
Yeah, so basically it's about the prison abolition versus reform. So Jonathan, last week you were very much, I feel like you were in the middle, but you're more swaying more towards reform. Take this analogy, for example. So you take your iPhone charger, for example. Your charger's reached the point where you have to like hold it in a certain place, right, to get it to work, right? In a certain place to get it. You know you need a new one, but sometimes you just keep wanting to, hold it in that place before you get a new one. But in reality, the brand new charger will work completely like fine. Everything will function properly. Liken this to police abolition and reform. With reform, you know that there's something fundamentally wrong with that system, with that structure that you have in place, but you still want to, tweak a few things here and there just to get it to work. But in reality, you know that a new system needs to be in place for things to start functioning correctly, for things to work properly. So like, that's why I was very much for abolition, because like, we can't keep twixing and moving and trying to fix a system that isn't designed to function properly. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Do you get it?
Yeah, I understand that. But then it's just part of the. It's just that's another thing that's part of like the ongoing problem at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
like
that's just how it is. But like, I feel like
it's a big debate, really.
Obviously, I think we're coming to the end of like our podcast, and guys, this will be the end of like the 3-part series that we've been doing at the moment. I mean, we thank you obviously you guys for like listening and stuff and like supporting us, and like obviously just doing your part too to like obviously help make a difference and make a change and stuff. Next week we're going to be taking a break with the podcast, a week off, or you could say, but keep an eye on our Instagram page, because we will be saying stuff on there about what we'll be doing in future, and we want to try to take an approach where we're letting people like give their thoughts on what they want to be answered more, so that we can kind of educate people on things that they don't know, rather than like larger things. So it's about the general public and like how we can make a difference to make people educated so they don't do things that lead to racism, or they know enough to feel confident to help or make a difference, like, if you know what I'm saying. So keep an eye on the Instagram, and like we'll keep that updated and stuff. But we thank you guys for tuning in today and listening, and we hope that you have a blessed day and a blessed rest of the week and weekend and stuff, and like we'll see you in the next couple weeks. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Bye.